Hey guys, welcome to another Cheezy class. Today, I'll be showing you how to track in Cinema 4D. Okay. So bear this in mind, when you want to work with a footage in a 3D software, it's always best to work with a JPEG sequence or a PNG sequence. This also goes for compositing softwares. It makes processing the images a lot easier. So guys, as you can see, I have with me my JPEG sequence. Now, if you don't know how to go about creating a JPEG sequence, let me quickly show you. I use DaVinci Resolve, so I will show you how to do it in DaVinci Resolve. So guys, I'll be using DaVinci Resolve for my editing and compositing. If you use any other software like Premiere Pro and After Effects, you can also follow along just fine. So as you see, we have our video imported in our timeline. We are going to export this as a JPEG sequence. I'm in the render tab. I'm going to select my destination folder. So I'll create this folder and I'll call it JPEG VFX. So I'm going to save it here. So once we've done that, I'm going to go on that format and change it to JPEG. Then you go into the files and you click on each clip starts at frame 1. This will ensure that when it's numbering your frames, it will number it from frame 1. This is very important. So from there, I'm going to add to render queue. Now, if you'd like to have the project file of the VFX video that I showed earlier, I will put the link to the project file in the description below. Also, the video files I'll be working with in this class will also be in the link in the description below. So you can download it and follow up with the video just fine. Alright, so there are two videos we are working with. The first video is for the camera track, while the second is for the object track. Alright, so we'll start with the camera track. Now let's go into the track tab in Cinema 4D. This allows us to be able to access some features. So now we'll click on the track menu, then click on full solve. So from there, navigate to where you have your JPEG sequence and click on the first frame. Then click on open. Cinema 4D will do its thing and automatically from beginning to end track your scene. It's just like the 3D camera tracker in After Effects and it does everything automatically. Alright, so our camera solve is done completely. This is a straightforward way of just getting your camera solve done. So when I get out of the camera view, you can see these are the points that make up the handle of the chair. So you can see a lot of weak tracks here, a lot of weak track points here, but that is not a problem for me. The accuracy is high enough that this is very reliable. So what you can go ahead and do is calibrate this in. So right now, to calibrate, you click on the motion tracker, then right click, then go to tracking tags, tracker tags. Yeah, go to tracker tags. So let's start with the position constraint. When you click on the position constraint, a dot appears on the screen. So you can drag that dot to any points that you feel you are confident in. Now, when you drag that point there, the position constraints will make that point the center of origin. So now the next thing you can add is the planar constraint. The planar constraint allows you to indicate what is a planar surface. You have to select 3 points. So I will enable the move tool, then click on this. So I'll drag it to 3 points I feel confident in. I don't feel confident in any of these points here. None of these points here are, should I say, flat enough for me to call them a planar surface. So I'm going to just ignore the plane constraint, but I'm going to use the vector constraint. This allows us to define any 2 points, and we can define the axis of those 2 points and the distance between those 2 points. This come in handy when you want to work in scale. So I know this point and this point here is about 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters. So I can select these 2 points and go here to non-scale and set it to 20 cm. You see now everything is big. Yeah, everything is big now. It has made it sort of to scale. So this here that is 200 by 200 by 200 centimeters is going to be bigger than that. Well, I don't like working with this scale because this scale is too small. So if I want to work with this scale, to animate in this scale, is going to be annoying. So I'd rather just set this to like, I will increase everything by 100. So when I'm accounting for it, I will account it in the hundreds. So at this point, if I had a cube and I scale it down, you see as I drag it, the cube stays in place firm. So this is a very good track. Alright, now we are done with the camera track actually. Generally, when you are tracking using a 3D software, you need minimum of 8 tracking markers to generate a solve. A tracking marker is a marker that tracks a point in the 3D software, while a 3D solve is when the computer uses all the tracking markers it has gathered to calculate the movement of the camera or the geometry that you are tracking. Hey guys, so in Cinema 4D, we'll go to the tracker tab. then add in the motion tracker. All right, now let's import our footage. We'll go here, click on this, then navigate to where our footage is. Then click on the first frame, open it. All right. So from here, let's start adding our manual tracking markers. We go into the 2D tracking, then manual tracking, click on it, then hover over a tracking marker, then press Ctrl and left click to add a tracking marker. Here's the tracking marker and here's a view of the close-up of the tracking marker. So I can just lower the search area. This is the tracking area, this is the search area, and I will track forward. When you track forward, Cinema4D automatically starts tracking forward for you. So now I can play through my timeline and I will see my track follows wonderfully. Now, what do you do when your track breaks? Anywhere it breaks, just go to the frame that it starts breaking from, then adjust it back. So you see it breaks here again. Once you adjust it back to the right position, Cinema4D will automatically add a keyframe there and it will start tracking forward from there. So you see it breaks again. It breaks again somewhere around here. Now move it here. So now the track is completed. So now this was a very simple track, wasn't it? Let's set up one that's a bit complex. The ones that get occluded when I turn my head. How do we track those markers? It's very simple. I'll go to the frame I want to start tracking. In this case, that is frame 120. Go to where the tracking point is, then Ctrl left click to add a tracking marker. I can scale down the search radius a little bit so that it doesn't search other points. Or you can do track forward and backward. So it tracks backward, then forward. So then I'll scrub through my timeline backward and look for at what point does the tracker loses it. Around here it loses it. So I will still adjust it since I can still physically see it. But any point that the tracker starts to misbehave, I will disconnect it completely. Now what you can do is that when you don't want to add any more track or anything behind it, it's very good to add the trim track keyframe to it. This trim track keyframe tells Cinema4D that it should trim the track from this point going backward. So from here forward, the track continues. Same thing we'll do for here. Right now, we are going to adjust it to where we don't see it again on screen. Right now, the track item is misbehaved, so I will trim it again forward. So from here, it's going to trim the track. So let's say I see the tracking marker again, like here, and I see the tracking marker again. I'll just add the trim here. I'll add the trim here, then go to the next frame, then drag in my tracking marker there, then track forward. This is a very stable track. So take your time to play through your tracking markers to ensure that each of them is exactly where they should be. Let me add another one to the chain. Ctrl, left click. Ideally, we are meant to have 3 track points at any given moment. So at frames like this where some track points go missing because they are no longer visible, the track point is not going to be accounted for right now. So you now have to add another track point to fill in this gap in those places. So that is why at any point in time, it's good to have enough tracking markers so that you can track a point even though other points are not visible. So I'm going to go ahead and track a couple more points. I'm going to speed ramp the entire process. All right, as you can see, for this tracking marker, when I reach here, it loses its way a little bit. And I don't want to manually have to be putting it back because it can make the integrity of the track not too good. So I will just cut it from here. And when I can physically see it properly, I will add on that cut there. Then go forward 1 frame. Then drag the tracking marker into the correct position. Then Cinema4D automatically continue the track for you. So look at this track now. Sometimes when you get some weird jumps like this, it could be because the search area is not big enough or the search area is too small. So now I increase the size of the search area and you see the path correct itself. So keep that in mind. It's not every time you really have to move the track. You can just increase the search area. Like here too, same thing. So I just go to the frame before the thing went haywire, then increase search area. And sometimes you might experience some weird things whereby the track goes off course. You see the paths right now. This is the path the track follows, right? The path follows fine. But when it goes off course, when I adjust it, it affects the previously tracked path. So now it starts glitching and all that. So let me Ctrl Z this. So another thing to go about is that before the thing goes, before the keyframe gets lost, the frame before that add a insert key at track point position. Insert key at track position. So So this will allow you to adjust the next point without affecting the previous one, and sometimes it will even fix the next point. Like in this case, it fixed the next point, so now the track is successful. So I think right now we should have enough tracking markers to be able to create a solve. So let's try it out, shall we? First of all, let's save our project. We'll go to the tracker menu, then add our object tracker. Then we'll drag the object tracker under the motion tracker. Then Ctrl A on our viewport to select all the points. Then we'll click on Assign Selected. Then from there, we'll go to Reconstruction, then Run Solve for Objects. So now we'll wait for it. Alright, now we have our solve. Now let's test the solve. We'll open the tracker hierarchy, then we'll click on the user 6. So hold down Shift and add a cube. This is a good way to test if your tracker is stable. Well, our solve is somewhat stable, but it can be better. Let's delete the cube and let's go and fix this in the motion tracker. To fix this, we'll go into the tracker menu, then add the motion tracker graph view. This will show us every point that the engine feels that it might give issues down the line. So any point that it shows red, it means the solve is not really confident in that tracking marker. So in this area, the solve is not confident with this tracking marker. I think even here you can even see it, and you can easily see it here. Let's see what went wrong. And sometimes nothing went wrong, it's just that there's no major movement in that area, so it thinks there's an error there. So what we can just do is add a keyframe and insert a keyframe at that point. Then you should fix the problem. But remember, when you insert the keyframe at that point, be careful. Move forward a little bit to check if everything's alright. Around that keyframe at that point to check if everything's alright. Yeah, be careful not to fall into the trap of adding too many keyframes. If you are adding too many keyframes, there's something wrong with your track. Just keep that in mind. So like here now, I'm probably adding too many keyframes. So let me just move it a little bit. Probably that solves it. You see, it solves it better. So like here, so instead of maybe adding the keyframe, I can just move it a little bit. Most of the errors have been addressed, and we can also go into the graph editor to see. Ideally, the graph is not meant to be this chaotic. All the place that you see spikes is where the solver gets confused. So if you adjust it a little bit, it removes the confusion from the solver's end. So sometimes you might have to actually add some new tracking markers so that the solver can understand, okay, this is how it's supposed to go. So I'm going to keep on adjusting it till I have a more calm situation here. A lot more calm situation. Alright, so after applying a lot of the corrections, we have a lot more stable track. So in the original version, I added a lot more tracking markers and I spent a lot more time correcting the errors of the tracking markers. I hope this video was able to shed some light in tracking with Cinema4D. I'll see you in the next Cheezy class.